that we are not progressing as well as some of our colleagues are. And what they told us was, we had some professionals come and talk to us, and they said, that's because you guys are not negotiating. So what's that? And that's how this workshop started. And now this is one of the most popular workshops. I was with in December, I was with the IEEE, International EE people. I don't know what the second E stands for.
I don't remember either.
I know, IEEE. Anyway, they had asked me to come, and this was in Hawaii, so that was a good workshop for me to go around. And AICHA, I think this is one of the most popular workshops because in a workplace, most of us don't know how to negotiate, what to negotiate, what is expected, and all of those things. So that's what that's what I'm going to talk about. And it's not just a workplace, it's as a grad student, and any jobs that you go into, there's always a process of negotiation. For teaching, for GTA responsibilities, what are my responsibilities? For summer funding, grad students are always looking for summer funding and how to get the funding done and what's the work responsibility associated with that. Another big thing for grad students is authors, name on papers, right? Authorship. Firstly, who gets to be an author, and then the order of authors. Those are all negotiated in some way. Another one that is really of great interest to grad students is negotiating when you're going to leave. When you start looking for jobs, how do you have that conversation with your advisor, and how do you negotiate when to leave? So those are all these are times when we are entering into a conversation on a topic that's a little difficult for us to talk about. And that's what negotiation is. So let's start with this. So what I want to do is to first take a minute here and let's take a minute and introduce ourselves. Name, department, how long have you been in the university, and why did you come to this workshop? Let's quickly go around and learn that, so that I will tailor my workshop according to that.
Okay.
Start.
My name is Mehdi, and I'm a PhD candidate in electrical engineering department.
Okay.
I've been here since 2015, and I'm a graduate teaching assistant. And why I'm here, I close to be graduated. I need that conversation with my advisor, and at the same time I start looking for jobs, and I already have some couple of interviews.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think I need some skills to maybe it's not a good word to say, but I need some skills to sell myself to the market, because sometimes I have some abilities that I cannot introduce in the best way.
Okay.
And you know, the way that they're looking for.
Okay.
That's the thing I'm looking for.
How do you do that? Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah. So hello everyone. I'm Yash. I'm from Mechanical Engineering Department, and I've been here since fall 18. I'll be graduating in this spring semester, and soon after my bachelor's, I came to my master's. And you know, it's often said like in order to get a job, you either have experience, which I'm lacking. So I just want to improve my soft skills. So this happens to be one of the workshop conducted by GSE. I've been coming regularly for any of the workshops. So
Yeah. Good.
Hi everyone, my name is Ronak More. I am a mechanical engineering graduate student over here at Tech. This is my second semester here, and I'm looking for internships and co-ops starting this summer.
Yes.
So I believe that this will help me, like any tips or anything, whatever is required for that process.
Good.
Hello everyone, I'm Chen from the CS department and
Which department?
CS, computer science.
CS. Okay. Yeah.
and this is my, I came to LTU for 18.
Yeah.
So what I'm interested about this workshop is I know there's quite different culture difference between
Right.
Western and Eastern world. So about the negotiation. So I was wondering what
Sure.
should be negotiated, what cannot be negotiated in the future when looking for a job or for faculty position. So, okay.
Hi, I'm Nielsen Chen, and I'm a second year PhD student from Computer Science Department. I came here in 2018, and why I'm here is because that I think I can benefit from this presentation, and I hope to learn something about the negotiation skills, which may be useful for my future research or career.
My name is Nimi Yu. I'm from Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering.
Yes.
And right now, I'm as a postdoc research associate. I just completed my doctoral study last October from Shinpac.
Yes.
During daytime, I'm trying to find an academic position about the work. So in this workshop, I would like to know how to negotiate with the human resource of the academic institute. Thank you.
Okay. So good. So what I want to do here is first, today, there's some basics for any negotiation. It doesn't matter, grad student faculty, grad student chair of the department, student company, student job in a university, student postdoc, all of those, there are some basics what one should know. So we're going to talk about that first. Then we'll do a role play, have a little skit here. We'll say how it goes, and you can see how these negotiations can go well and can go badly. So then we'll do that for a little bit. And what I'd like to do, and I always want to do this, have you really break up into, in this case, 2 groups and practice what we have just talked about. And sometimes that gets cut because there are lots of questions and we never get to the end and the hour and a half is up. This is actually a 4-hour workshop. So we're going through. So we have an hour and a half. So we'll do what we can do, right? And then we'll see where we are, okay? All right, so let's get started. So some of these I might go a little fast, but let's do that, okay? So the issue is this, right? You're in the classroom, then we get into a research lab, right? This is our progression for most of us. And then, different lab environments, and then we land up in our first job, right? This is the progression for most of us. And so the question is, where do we, as scientists and engineers, where do we learn what is appropriate workplace behavior and how to effectively communicate in a laboratory environment, right? That's what we're all talking about. Where do we learn how to do that? Huh? And it turns out we do it mostly by example, right? We see how our advisor is doing, how our professor is doing, and we just kind of imitate, mimic, right? Those might not be the best mimics many times. So this is kind of what happens. My kids say this is what I look like when I'm negotiating with United because my flight has been dropped or something, right? So we really don't know how to negotiate well. So what is it? When we say negotiation, what do we mean, right? For many people, it means asking for a higher salary. And that's not it. That's one of the things, but that's not the most important part of many negotiations. It's really that there are some differences in what the 2 people are expecting and how do we reach an agreement on something that's not comfortable, that's a little difficult, but more importantly for most of us, how do we reach an agreement without burning bridges, right? We don't want to make enemies of people. We don't want bridges to be burned because most of the time, whether it's a chair or your advisor, it's a long-term relationship. It's many years relationship. It could be for the rest of your career. It's a long-term relationship. So to keep those relationships is also important. So really, how do we come to an agreement, keeping in mind those relationships? That's what negotiation really usually is. So, yeah, are you comfortable with asking and negotiating what you need? Are you comfortable? Somewhat? No, really, it's all uncomfortable. Yeah, usually. So what you have to keep in mind is often you're negotiating, not always, often, to say how can you be productive in the workplace, right? Whether it is salary, lab, teaching assignment, new computer, technician's help, all of those things. Most of the time you're talking about how can I be more productive in the workplace? And so sometimes it's how one you frame that, you know. So for example, let's take an example that you might deal with. That is, for your TA responsibilities in the fall semester, what are you supposed to teach? Let's take an example. You've probably all been there. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So 2 labs, 3 labs, if it's lab, if it's hours, how many hours, right? So usually with the TA it says 20 hours, but still it depends on number of hours. So you're talking about, okay, do you want, how many labs should you teach? Do you want your labs to be 8 o'clock in the morning? Do you want all 3 labs in the same day? All of those details that will make it easier for you to make good progress in your program, in your coursework. That's what you're trying to optimize. What does the department need, and what works for me, right? So, and you might not like a 3 o'clock lab on a Friday. However, the department needs to fill that slot because nobody wants it, or somebody has to teach it, right? So, should one always agree all the time? Should we say, okay, I realize you really need somebody this semester, but for next semester, can I have a time of my choice? Or if I teach that one, can I have fewer grading hours, something like that? So you're trying to figure out something that works for them, because the other person, the other unit also has certain needs, and you have certain needs. And that's what you're trying to come to an agreement, right? So oftentimes you're negotiating to be productive in the workplace. Many times you're negotiating to advance in your careers, which is often the case also. So if you're not comfortable, which is what I hear you all say, why are you not comfortable? Why are we not comfortable negotiating? You know, many of us do come from cultures where this is bizarre. It could be India, anywhere in the world. And there's always negotiation going on there. Yeah, right? And we're comfortable negotiating, right? We're comfortable negotiating for tomatoes or whatever the issue may be here, right? But we're not comfortable negotiating in the workplace, right? Because coming from India, we do this all the time. You step out of the house, you buy any vegetable, you're negotiating with the vegetable vendor. So we're comfortable. But even for those who are comfortable negotiating in these sort of situations, we're not comfortable negotiating in the workplace. Why do you think that's the case?
I think because the position between the people. For example, when you negotiate with your professor or your leader or group leader, the position is different. So
that's right. There is a power differential.
yeah, yes.
There's a power dynamics playing here. Because I do this workshop for India for women faculty from different universities in India. The women are perfectly good negotiators, but in a workplace situation, no. So it is the power differential, right? You're dependent on them. So that's what we want to feel comfortable about. How do we do that, right? And why are we not comfortable, right? There's the power differential, but what is it that stops us from doing that, from negotiating?
A kind of fear.
Yeah, fear, different kinds of fear. Fear, what's one fear that you're thinking of?
You have been given an opportunity this semester. If you try to negotiate, you might not be given the next semester.
Am I asking too much?
Yeah.
I'm asking too much. Will they think I'm being selfish?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 What else? It's a long list of reasons. I'll ruin my relationship with my boss, advisor, whoever it is, by asking, right?
Yeah.
I won't get what I want anyway. So why bother? I might not look like a team player. I might look like a narcissist. I'm only concerned about myself. I'm not a good team player. And we don't want to come across that way. Really, it's stressful. It's always stressful. However, we can get more comfortable with it. And I think that's what the point of it is. Even now for me, after all these years, some are easy, but there are always stressful negotiations going on. And it does get easier. It's how one frames the discussion both in your head and when you're talking to the other person. And so the framing becomes important because many times you're saying, I'm hired to do this job. In order for me to do this job well, I need this. You hired me to do this job. You want me to be successful in doing this job. And I want to be successful. So I need to go to this workshop to learn this software set technique or to make the presentation somewhere. Something like that. So it is how one frame rather than, I want to go to an international workshop in Hawaii in January. We all would like to go, but so just think of how it's going to benefit the work you have to do. And most people, once they hire you to do a job, they want you to be successful. Nobody wants to hire anybody and then have it be a failure, have them fail. Same thing with faculty. Once we take on a student, we don't want them to fail. We want them to be successful, get their PhD and graduate in good time, right? And we're all trying to get to the same end, but things are not always aligned. So then, many of us think nothing is negotiable anymore. We don't know what is negotiable, and that is a huge issue. Even now with faculty, it's amazing. The junior faculty have no idea what is negotiable. They didn't negotiate, they come here. And I was chair for many years in chemistry before. So they would, even now, they'll come to me and say, should I ask this? Am I allowed to ask this? You're totally allowed to ask this. I don't know what I can negotiate about for, so that's an important issue also. So this is difficult for everybody. It's more difficult for women. And I want you all to know as males that sometimes if males negotiate, it's okay. We expect men to negotiate. We don't expect men to negotiate. So women who negotiate have an even harder time to be taken seriously. They're judged harshly. I'm telling you, Amy. But this is not to stop us from negotiating, but that's the reality of life. So we just have to deal with it. So really, this is what the book says. Men don't like to negotiate. Women don't like to negotiate. Women are less likely to negotiate. Turns out when people do these studies, men initiate negotiations much more than women initiate negotiations. So for many men, they say it's like winning a ball game. It's a contest. It's like winning. But for women, they say it's like going to the dentist. I hate to negotiate. Often I give this for women because women have a particularly hard time. So, but I'd like all the men also to know it's difficult for everybody, but more difficult, right? So they say they don't negotiate at all, okay? But really, as we know, many men don't like to negotiate either. In our house, my husband doesn't like to negotiate. So if there's anything negotiation that comes up, he'll say, Pushpa, please talk to so-and-so, which to me means, yeah, he wants to negotiate whatever the issue is, you know. So it just depends on what it is, right? So what's a good negotiation? What we want is a productive dialogue. Really, it is about problem solving. There's a problem, we need to solve it. And it's not about winning or losing. And many people look at it that way. So, and oftentimes, it's all about how to frame your discussion. That it serves your purpose and it serves their purpose as well. And to see how it can benefit both people. That if you look at it that way and go into a negotiation that way you approach, the way you talk is quite different from, I'm going to go and ask for the salary increase and that's it. If I don't get it, I've lost it. Okay, so don't do it that way. I'll give you some examples as we go along. Okay, it's easy to say, but it's very difficult, right? So that's what this is saying. Still, you're talking about benefits, there are skills, there's a lot of dialogue, of course, there's collaboration, different tactics one can use, you know, how do you communicate differences, how do you reach an agreement, how do you compromise, really a lot of stuff going on. So it's not, that's the reason it's difficult to do a negotiation. It's not easy to do a negotiation. Yeah? So here are the basics. The basics are these. First, you have to recognize what is and isn't a negotiating situation. So, for example, for me, this was many years ago, I said, I got a salary increase and my chair in chemistry here at the time, and it didn't feel like I was adequately compensated. I didn't feel like I got a good salary compared to everyone else. Right? So I went to the chair and I said, I'm not happy with my salary increase. I think you should have given me more. You don't know how much salary increase everybody is getting often, right? So firstly, they get defensive right away, and the chair got all defensive also and said, Pushpa, you're way too late. The decisions are already made. They went up to the dean, they went up to the provost. It's all decided. We can't make any changes now, which is all true. I had gone late because I didn't want to negotiate. I didn't want to ask. By the time I got my courage up to ask, it was really too late, right? So, I said, at that time, I said, okay, you're right. I am too late. How about for next year?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll remember it for next year. Well, which is true. However, next year it's again going to be difficult, right? Again. So I said, okay, what I'm going to do is 1 month before the negotiation, before the salary increase, we know when chairs are looking at that. They ask for what did you accomplish last year, right? 1 month before that, I will send you an email or come and talk to you and remind you that this is what you said. So because again, I'll go through this. Am I being selfish? Should I ask? When should I ask? All the stuff. I don't want to go there, right? So a month before, I'll come and let you know that this is what we agreed on so that you can take care of it for me. And he did. He was wonderful. I got a good salary increase. So it was too late to negotiate. Things had already been done. So that's what I mean. Recognize when is and isn't, but that doesn't mean you should leave with nothing in your hand. So I was happy. He was happy that I wasn't pushing the issue. He realized he had made a mistake. And so, okay, it just worked out. Let's move on from there, right? Because I don't want to fight with my chair all the time after that every year. So recognize what is and isn't a negotiating situation. When you go for industrial jobs also, what you find is that in many industry, a lot of the stuff is already decided and HR already knows it. Your moving expense, what your retirement benefits are, what kind of vacation time you're going to get, sick leave you're going to get, all of those things are already decided. So you really can't negotiate those things. So when you're looking, and even in university, you will take a look at the list, the long list you can negotiate. But knowing who to negotiate with what is also important. So if you're going to a university career, with your chair or with the search committee, during the interview, don't negotiate. They will often have an HR slot for you. So HR, who's not making your decisions for whether to hire you or not, they have a list. Here are the benefits. You know, can you come 2 weeks before to find a place? If you come 2 weeks before, will they pay for your hotel? All the sort of detail is already done. You can ask those questions of human resources. And that's their job, that's what they do. But if you have that discussion with the search committee or the person you're going to report to, unless they bring it up, it just doesn't look good. Because you want to have a science discussion with them, not negotiate the details of this. A question that often comes up is, for people who are married, spousal hire. Their husband and wife, their teams, they're really looking for 2 jobs many times. So when do we bring up this issue? That's a very common thing that comes up. So I don't know for any of these there is one right answer. I tell you what I think makes sense. And you can figure it out and make changes. So some people say, you should let them know in your cover letter itself that I have a spouse or a partner who's looking for a job also at the same time. Especially if 2 are in the same field in universities, that is such a problem. As we say, the 2-body problem. This is the same reason I told you not to negotiate with your supervisor, but to negotiate with HR, human resources, because I say, make a decision whether you want to hire me on the basis of my competence in your field, not on the basis of other things, like a partner or a spouse or some other things. Once you made a decision on that basis, if I get the job, okay, now I'm in a good negotiating position. Once I have a job, you can negotiate. But before you have a job, let's say even for example, for grad students, you want to start on, they want you to start 1st January. You know you're not going to be finished and done by 1st January. Maybe 1st March. Maybe you'll be 3 months late, 2 months late by the time you defend. So you're negotiating that also, right? So, okay, I would say, wait till they make you the offer. Because by the time they make you the offer, they have already decided you're the best person on the basis of your CV, your competence, your interview, how you handle the questions, all of that stuff, which is what you want them to think about when they're making you the offer. We don't want them to say, yeah, but the person was so concerned about salary or something, or retirement benefits, not so many questions about the job. So it just leaves an impression with them. What is your interest? What are you interested in, right? So even when they say, do you have any questions to ask? to ask those questions that are related to the job performance, how to do the job well. Can I go to a conference so I can learn new techniques? Can I go to a workshop to pick up new, those are all good questions. But asking about really, in fact, even salary almost at that stage, no, it just doesn't come across well at all. However, once they've made you the offer, you're in a different place. Now you can say, okay, what is my salary? Well, they'll come back and say, well, for starting position, we start at, I don't know, I'm going to just use a number, 60,000. Let me say that for argument's sake, right? Well, that's a place to start. We can say, well, and this happened really quite easy. One of my former PhD students just got a job at Lake Superior State, and she'd been a postdoc for 2 years. This was last week. What a nice thing. She said, Krishna, they're offering me this job, but I think I should negotiate for more. What should I do? He said, oh, you should ask them, okay, I'm not a fresh PhD. I have worked for a postdoc in this case, she had worked in the Army National Labs. So how do you account for the extra experience that I have that I'm bringing to the job compared to a fresh PhD who's not bringing those experiences? And they said, okay, we'll look at you as somebody who's had 3 years of work experience, she's been here 3 years as a postdoc, and they gave her quite a big bump, 7,000 more than they had originally started, it seems. So that is the time you can bring those issues like that, saying, have you accounted for what else I am bringing to the job? And therefore asking for a different salary from where you are. So the question was, what if they say no? And that was her concern. Sasha, I don't know, Amy, maybe you don't know. She was the president of GSG in one of her last years. But this was a few years ago. So my advice was, say, okay, how about next year? Maybe you can't accommodate the extra salary now, but you will see after my first year that this experience will reflect in better performance. So therefore, can we talk about it for next year? But don't say, sorry, therefore, I don't want the job and walk out. Okay, so it's a negotiation. You're saying you try balloons and see where you land. Because if you really like the job, you're not going to walk away. You want that job, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't negotiate either. So just think of how to bring into the conversation your previous experience and therefore what you're bringing to the job. In fact, when I started here as Dean of Grad School, the same thing played out, right? Sometimes when you're at a university like Michigan Tech, where you've been here for a long time, you know almost everybody, right? I know the provost, I know most of the chairs, I know most of the deans. So how do you negotiate with somebody you've been friends with for 25 years, right? So I had the current provost, who I've known for a long time, I said, this is strictly business, it's not personal, which is true, right? We have a personal relationship, but this is a business relationship. And I think the salary you're offering me doesn't take into account that I've been at NSF in the Division of Grad Education for 3 years. I'm not a fresh graduate dean. I'm bringing in a national experience, having been there. So therefore, I want you to consider and compensate me accordingly. Got a bump. So it's how you frame the argument that is important, and when you frame the argument, that's important. Once they have decided they want you, that means they looked at hundreds of CVs, they had a short list of 10, they interviewed 5 or 3 or whatever, and they picked you, right? They are totally committed to you. They really want you now. So that is your best negotiating position, right? Because they want to hire you rather than go to the number 2, because they have convinced themselves you're the best person for the job, and you are, right? So that's when you're negotiating at that time. One of the grad students last year before got a job, was going to San Francisco, felt he used to work in our grad school here, and he felt that he wasn't getting a good salary. He felt he needed to get at least 20,000 more than what he was. So I talked to him, I said, how much do you want this job? This is your first job. How much do you want this job? I really want this job. Do you want it enough? And it was in San Francisco and he wanted to be there. He said, okay, then ask them how much you want to negotiate, okay? How much you want the job. I said, okay, let's see, they give you 10,000 more. Will you accept it? Yeah, I'll accept it. Let's say they give you 5,000 more, will you accept it? Yeah, I will accept it. I really want this job. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't negotiate. But in your mind, you should go in saying, I really want this job. Even if they don't give me any salary increase, I will still take the job because I want it, because he liked the company and all of that. But if they don't give it, just at least have that conversation and say, okay, this is my first year, my first job. I will prove to you how good I am at this job. I really want this job. So next year, I want you to keep in mind when you're thinking of a salary increase, I will prove how good I am at this job. In this case, they gave him a little bit, but they didn't give him as much. They didn't give him 20,000. I think they came down around 10,000 or a little bit less than that. So he took it. So this is knowing the range, okay? So first, figure out what is a negotiating situation. Yeah, what are the rules? Really, it's a professional exchange. You can get emotional and upset and all of that stuff. That's just bad. It doesn't work out at all. It's not a fight. It's not a game. There is an expectation of give and take. They're going to give some, you're going to give some, this. So there will come somewhere in between. If you get everything you want, fantastic, but don't expect it. So yeah, you want to reach a win-win situation, because there will be no winner-take-all situation. So, and remember that it's always business. It's not personal, and sometimes it's good to say that if you know somebody well. But in most of your cases, if it's your first job, it's business anyway, so don't worry about it. Yeah, it's not an argument. It's not a debate. It's not some game you're playing. It's not a social ritual, and it's not competitive. It's really none of those things. It's coming to an agreement on something that you both want to do. The second thing is this. It is not a one-shot deal. You don't go in, you ask for a salary, they say no, and you walk out. That's not a negotiation. That's when you engage in a conversation. That, okay, not next year, this for me with my chair, say, okay, what's the range of salaries you give? From 0% to 10%. Okay, to get 10%, what did I need to do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you gave me 5%, whatever. I don't remember the details anymore, right? So, okay, then you make your case, right? And then they'll say, yes, okay, I see. And then it was whether you could do it this year or next year. So there's just really a give and take for you to understand their situation and their constraints. I just can't do it this year, it's too late. Or this is the range, I just can't give you more than this because it'll be more than my worker here who's been here for 5 years, and I can't do that, right? So they will tell you what their constraints are. You will find out and you adjust accordingly. So that's why we say it's a 10-act play. It's not you go in and you walk out. So, and then you also should know what exactly you want to ask for, what you will accept, what if everything was perfect, how much you want, what you're willing to accept. You should know that, you know, with the student. If they give you no salary increase, are you going to still take this job? Yes, I'll take this job. So know that. Doesn't mean you have to admit to that. But don't say, if you don't give me the salary, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to accept. Because people do that too. If I don't get this, I'm just going to resign. Right? How many times? Sometimes people say, go ahead and resign. So my first job, I worked for a chemical company outside of New York. My first job, that was the case. You know, in the New York, New Jersey area, there are lots of chemical companies. There's a lot of R&D work going on. So it was easy for people to switch from one company to the other because they were all in one row. The big companies, Hoffman La Roche, in this case, I looked for Stanford, Upjohn, etc. So my boss at the time said, when people come and say, I really need this, otherwise I'm going to quit, I usually tell them quit. Because next month there'll be another request. 6 months there'll be another request. So that's the wrong way to approach, to make threats like that. Unless you really want to quit, then fine, go ahead and say that. But if you don't really want to quit, in fact, for my student last week, it was, if they don't agree, should I just walk out? I said, Sasha, do you want the job? I want the job. Then why are you saying walk out? Okay, so they're going to say no. Then you have to, in your mind, say, okay, maybe not this year, maybe next year, okay? But in your mind, you should be comfortable with what your floor is, what you're willing to accept. If you say, if they don't give me this, I really don't want the job. If they say I have to teach 3 courses every semester, that is something I don't want to accept because it does not allow me time to do research, okay? Then you can say, yes, you said there's 3 courses each semester, but really I want to spend time for research and I can't do that. So can we negotiate a lower teaching, reduced teaching? So if they say no, then maybe then you should quit. Because this is important to you to have a reduced teaching load so you can devote some time to research. But if they say salary no, don't say no because you're saying, no, I still want this job. So know which are so important that you will not go below that and know which is one that you can negotiate for. So just having a clearer idea of exactly what you're asking, okay? It's not a one-shot deal. By that I mean there are some people who will always say no the first time you ask them. That's their strategy. That's their tactic. They have figured out, faculty member comes, says, I want to reduce teaching load. I'm going to say no, they're going to leave anyway. And it works. For the chair, it works every time. Because maybe 50% of them will go away. Only the other 50% of faculty will say, well, I have a proposal due the end in December, so I really want to reduce teaching load so I can submit a good proposal to NIH, etc. So then you can begin negotiating, yeah? But I can't, but we really need you to teach this course now. Okay. Well, can I have a TA? Can I team teach? Is there something else I can do so I can I teach a course in the summer? Because summer teaching is sometimes difficult and people don't want to teach in the summer because they want the summer off to do research. If I teach in the summer, can I get my fall off because my proposal is due in December? You know, those are all negotiations you're bringing to the table. In fact, the chair is saying, yeah, it's hard for me to get somebody to teach in the summer. So, yeah, if you agree to teach in the summer, I'll give you fall off so you can spend time writing your papers or finishing your proposal or something, whatever, something like that. So this way it works out for both of them. That's what I mean by it's not a one-shot deal. We say in negotiation, it's really a 10-act play. It's coming, going, learning what their constraints are. Okay, now I know more about your situation. Let me think about this and come back. That's what you should do. You should never leave a negotiation saying no and leaving. Yep, now I know what your constraints are, where you're coming from. Therefore, maybe in 2-3 days I'll come back and talk to you. Take that into account and talk to you. So you're giving yourself time to think through those things, and then you can go back and talk to them. So it's really always a connect play. But it's amazing how many people, it takes so much effort, right? You've already all like fired up to have this fight. You go, you say this, and the chair says no. And they get angry and they walk out. And it's worked for me. Okay, well, done, I'm done. So, no, you need to say, okay, can you talk about possibilities? Can we talk about how we can make it work for both? Here are my needs, here are your needs. All right, we'll come back and discuss it later, okay? So, what are your negotiables? What can you negotiate about? One is, what is a negotiating situation which is different from what are your negotiables? Yeah, please go and get some more food and coffee and hot chocolate and stuff there. I'm not going to do breakout sessions because we are trying to cover. You really should assume most things in life are negotiable. Most things are negotiable. You can horse trade. But most things in life are negotiable everywhere, right? So what are my negotiable? If it's a university job, some of you said you want a university job, right? Yeah. Teaching load, time on equipment, whether it's an NMR machine, high performance computing, whatever, time on equipment, want to attend meetings and present, maybe some personal time, you need to take some time off. What are your different teaching responsibilities besides course teaching? Can you have help teaching a lab? Can you have TA help? Can you have lab supervisor? As I said, authorship on papers, it's a tricky issue. Completing and stopping that date when you're going to decide what is going to happen. So, for example, this is one of the things that often happens. The students, before you start applying for jobs, assume it's going to take you a year to apply for it, to find a job, at least a year. So a year before you think you're graduating, start looking. Let your advisor know. I think I'm going to finish in a year. I think I should start applying. They'll not have thought about it at all, right? They'll think you're going to be there forever, right? So immediately it will be, okay, wait a minute, really? Yeah, I don't think so. You just started in my lab. It's, no, did this project, finish this. So in the next 12 months, I plan to finish this and this, and that should be a thesis, a dissertation in this case, if you're a PhD dissertation. To have that. They might say, oh no, you need a little bit more, whatever, but you want to know that a year ahead of time. You don't want to know that 2 months ahead of time, right? So to really have that ahead of time. And then in the advisor said also, oh, okay, this person is thinking, you can say, it's going to take me a year, plus or minus a couple of months. I think I should start looking. It'll be good to define what my thesis dissertation would look like, what else I have to do, and therefore, can we sit down and talk about it? Okay, so then you have a job. They're asking you to join tomorrow. You're not done. You still have a little bit of work to do, right? So it's another negotiation with your advisor before you tell the company anything. I got the offer. I'm sure the advisor will right away say, when do they want you to join? Right? Because we know we're going to lose this person now, right? So yeah, I'm negotiating. They want me in 3 months' time. Let me just say, for argument, take 3 months' time. If you're a PhD student, most industry knows that it's kind of not very clear exactly when you're going to finish. They've all been through the same thing, right? So in their mind, they're thinking plus or minus a month or two, often just plus a month or two. Very seldom is it minus, right? They know that. So they know that you're going to negotiate. So then you really need to know, okay, what do I need to finish and start? So, no, I don't think you can finish this because that project, that data gathering is happening. We need to do some iterations on the basis. There's always stuff like that. You'll hear that from your advisor. then it is good to say, well, okay, how about I'm done when this is done. I understand that this project needs to go on. Maybe I can start training somebody else to do that work. Maybe there's another grad student or somebody along, right? Often there's some continuity. I will spend, maybe I can start training a month before my defense, so that there is some continuity, because it is in your interest for the project to continue and finish. Because if the paper is not done, if somebody doesn't come pick up your project and finish, that paper will never come out, and that's not in your interest. You want that work done as well. So you're saying, how do we transition me out and the next person in, right? And so you're saying, okay, I can train somebody, and then, so that's the negotiation you're having. I probably can't be here 6 months. I've got this job. It's a great opportunity. It's a job I want. However, I want my project to continue also and make sure there's some continuity. How can we work something out? And that's a negotiation. Then you can, let your advisor say whatever. You can take that into account and say, let me think about that. Come back tomorrow. We can figure it out how to do that. So just have that negotiation. That you get more and more comfortable with doing that anyway, right? Oh, that's what completion did. Family responsibilities, office space, different activities, of course, salary and benefits. Again, in a university job, the salary is negotiable. Before you start negotiation, you should have all the data. That is, I think Glassdoor is one that puts out what is an acceptable salary for different people with different experiences. You can ask your colleagues who graduated last year and took jobs, how did it work out? What sort of salary should I be asking, right? So usually the people who have just graduated ahead of you, they've got a job, they're stable, they're fine, and they might not want to say, I'm getting 105,000 or whatever the number might be. But you can say, can you give me a range of salaries? What's the range I should be looking for? And they're happy to say that, yeah. So-and-so offered me this, so-and-so offered me this. This is the range, because they've done that homework too, right? To say, what is the range of salary? So when you go in, you must have gathered the data, collected data. The data is teaching assignment, or salaries, or moving expenses, all of those things. You should have a fairly good idea that what's the market bearing. And that is collection of data. So these are the negotiables usually. So I think I have most of this here, but for international students, I want to take a minute and talk about visa issues, right? Most of us who are international students have visa issues. When do we bring this up for discussion? So, talking to my colleagues in industry, this university companies, okay, if it's a university, you don't have to worry. They know there's visa issues, they'll work through it. So it's not an issue. They know when they've hired you that this is an international student coming, so we'll have to figure out something about the visa. Of course, it's good to ask. Do they have a lawyer on campus who can do that? How do they negotiate that? But you don't need to bring it up till they make you the offer. And they know when they're making you the offer that they'll have to work through the visa issues. Companies is a different story. If they're really big companies, the DuPonts, the Dows, the 3Ms, they know that they have to do this. And on that basis, they'll decide whether they want to interview international students or not. And if they're going to interview you, don't bring it up. Let them make you the offer, because they already know it. And then you can say, oh, you know that I'll have to change my visa. They will bring it up themselves often. But at that stage, you can bring it up. Don't bring it up till they bring it up, because they know. Sometimes the smaller companies is trickier, because you don't really know what is involved in the visa situation. how long it takes and how much a lawyer would cost. And if they don't have a lawyer, if they're just like 15, 20 people company, what it takes, all of that, they might not know what they're getting into with the visa situation. Then in those cases, it is good to say, they make you the offer. We need to talk about my visa status and how we change the visa status that allows me to work here. So, good. If it's a big company, they say, no problem, we have a lawyer, department of lawyers, and we'll take care of it. If they want you, that's good. The smaller ones, they might say, don't know. And small, if there's some really small companies, in fact, you might know more than they know. You might know about J1, H1B, all this stuff. They have no idea, right? Because they're not dealing with these things at all. So it depends on the size of the company. At that stage, they might actually say, oh my God, this visa issue is all too difficult. We can't do it. And it's possible because it is complicated and it costs a lot of money that they really can't do it because they're a small company. But make sure you clarify that before you take that job, after they make you the offer, before you take the job. Just make sure what it is they're willing to do, not do. They might not even know the details, as I said. What does it take to, to go to an OPT, to get OPT with 2-year term extension, H1B, and what's the process and how you do that? Sometimes we know more than they know. So after the offer, if they don't raise it, bring it up so you know exactly what is going on. Many people I know will say, it's a small company, they don't have lawyers, so they'll say, we'll give you whatever paperwork you need, we'll help you, but we're not going to hire lawyers. There are many lawyers who do this immigration business. It's almost worth it for you to hire a lawyer and have them take care of it. What? Usually they'll say, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, some thousands. They'll say to take it from the beginning till the end. There are so many loopholes. Just, I would say, hire a lawyer, pay them, and let them take care of it. If the company says no. Sometimes the companies say yes, and their lawyers are not good. And then you get into trouble also. So just keep in mind, you might, to get your visa thing taken care of, you might need to budget in some money, so you get a lawyer who is going to get that thing taken care of because it is so important to get that done. So those for international students, the OPT, the OPT extension, all of that comes into play, but finally, that's what you need to be thinking of and know the rules of. Okay.
So you did about the vacation days?
Okay, again, most companies, they say this is it. HR. HR will say this is it. Sometimes they, if you, like us, if you want to go home for not just for 1 week, but for many weeks, can you take it in December and January? That kind of thing, you can ask them that question. Can I combine 2 years, so December, January, so I can have an extended vacation? Definitely talk to the HR. Don't talk to your boss. Don't talk to your search committee. HR knows all of this stuff because you don't want them to make decision on that basis. It's information you want, but you don't want them to influence your decision. I was a few years ago, just before I became dean here, I was at the National Science Foundation. And we had a number of people come to interview. And a professor from Milwaukee came to interview. And I couldn't believe one of the first questions he asked was, okay, so NSF has rules. How often you can go back to your home institution? Like, I still had grad students here. I was coming here once a month to make sure I met with my grad students and kept up with their research progress. So there are rules. So you need to know that before you go in. And if you have questions on that, ask the HR. This is a senior faculty who gave the seminar. They said, okay, do we have any questions? And he said, Yeah, I have a research group back in Milwaukee. How often can I go home to meet with my students? Bad thing. That's all we heard. He's so concerned about going back and keeping his research going. Really, is he dedicated to this or not? Because this is going to make a difference to your research productivity. So we didn't make him the offer. We all were in that situation. We knew exactly what was going on. But that was just the wrong question to ask. So it should be really to get this job done. How can I, what do I need to do to be successful in the job, to do a good job? But HR you can ask. And if he had gone down to HR, which there was later in the afternoon, they would have told him everything he wanted and it wouldn't have affected. So be careful. So what are my negotiables? So this is an industry job. Okay, as I said, in industry, there are less negotiables than with the university. So salary to some extent. Many people talk about flex time. These days, many industry will say 4 days, 10 hours, rather than 5 days. They might come up again, an HR issue might come up. Do you have flex time? Let them tell you something rather than I want flex time. Right? That's not, you're not in that position. They're not going to change the rules for you, right? Many of them are also doing telework to, and you can negotiate that also sometimes, do you do telework? They'll say yes or no. If they say yes, then you can find out more details about this. So those are things that many companies are negotiating, which does make a difference. Moving expenses also. Again, usually that's pretty standard, but it's something you need to find out in any case, so you will know what the moving expenses are. Yeah, office space is a good one. For me, for somebody like me, so you see, I'm claustrophobic.
Okay.
I can't be in a room with no windows. I need to have windows. When I go to hotel, anywhere, I don't like another building, right? I have to first say, can I check the room to make sure the windows are fine? I want as high up as possible. I said, so we all have. So I always would say, okay, you and I said, can I see where my office is? And turns out they had given me an office without a window. And I said, I took it. At that time, I took it. I said, yes. Then later on, I said,
Thanks.
I just really need an office with a window.
After accepting the offer.
Yeah. Because this is a disability issue. They have to make reasonable accommodation. I said, I'm claustrophobic. I just can't have an office without it. They said, oh, we have to make reasonable accommodation. Therefore, can you have a doctor or something that says that? Yeah, sure. Or something. And then they found me. They were fine. They were okay. So if that's important to you, yeah, look up your office space and see whether it works or not. I had the best office with 3 windows. and all the other people who joined with me would come and say, how did you get this room with the office with a window? We are sitting inside in the cubicle there with no windows. But I said, yeah. I said, I was claustrophobic, and I am. I didn't make that up. I said, bummer, I wish we knew that. I would have said something. So, whatever the issues are. Of course, intellectual property issues are also important. Make sure you talk about that. You might have some family responsibilities, You might have a young kid at home, partner working. You might need to leave at a particular time to pick up baby from the babysitter, etc. Not at the interview time, but later on. I think most people are sensitive to this now. In the university, we used to always have meetings that started at 5. And for the women faculty, that was terrible because often women are more responsible with the babies and picking them up. And they couldn't attend till some women faculty said, you know what, we're missing on faculty meetings. You need to have it at noon or 1 or 2 because we want to attend them, but don't do it at 5 when we have to pick up the baby at 5:30, right? So the people are more sensitive about those issues now. They will not do that, especially in companies. But sometimes, in fact, our faculty senate had the same discussion earlier in the year because they start at 5:30 and they go till 7 or something. And many faculty don't want to be representatives because they need to be home at that time with the family. So it's something you need to be. Most people are sensitive these days about that. Yeah, attending meetings, attending technical workshops. Yeah, many companies give you money for future education. Again, with the HR, whether it is education or executive training meeting. So different kinds of career advancement. And it is good to ask them, what is your career advancement process? What's the next step? What's the step after that? How often will it take to go from one step to the next? What are some accomplishments you're looking for? Those are good questions because you are saying, I want to make a career here. I want to advance in my career. What do I need to do? What's the process? Right? So those are all some of the things you want to. And it says you want to advance in your career. And it's good to join a company where they have thought through and they will already tell you this. And most of them do. They have a process. So I think we talked about that. Okay, so recognize what is and isn't. Identify. Okay, these are lingos that people use, BATNA and ZOPA. And here what you're doing is, you're asking yourself, if I don't negotiate, what is my alternative? If I don't negotiate, I'm going to get $60,000. Am I okay with that? I'm not okay with that. Then negotiate. So what is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement? I want to go to a conference in, I don't know, Spain. I don't have the money. I need to come up with resources. If I don't want to negotiate, if I don't want to go to the chair, to your advisor, to anybody and ask them for that, what will happen? I won't go to the conference. Are you okay with that? Is that alternative? If you are, fine. You say, nah, I'm not happy. Then you need to negotiate. So that's what you have to ask yourself. It's never, nobody is ever happy, enthusiastic. But what's your alternative to a negotiated agreement? If you don't negotiate, what will happen? That will tell you to negotiate or not negotiate, because it is always energy, emotional energy, time you're putting into the negotiation and collecting data and all of that stuff. So yeah, consider and evaluate your alternatives and establish this. I really need to go to that conference and present my work in Spain because it will give publicity to my work, it will advance, I'll have an opportunity to network, all of those things. And I know some faculty and some students I know also will say, I don't mind putting some of my own money for that, because even with the little money from department, from the advisor, from the grad school, sometimes you might still not come up with enough money to cover all your expenses, but it will be more, but just know what will happen if you don't ask. You don't write the application at all. So then the next, and it's dynamic. They might say, you know, our budget is done. We don't have it this year, right? Then, you know, nothing's going to happen. So you need to find out what their situation is, okay? So then the next one is to ask them what are their constraints? What are their budget issues? And it's good to know that as well, so you know when to come back and ask. So then the next one is what we call zone of possible agreement. Like with the student here, we're going to accept 90,000. I really want 110. Anything in between is acceptable. So you need to know what your lower limit is, what's the upper limit you're aiming for, so you know where you're going to fall, and that is okay for you. So just have an idea whether it is teaching load. I know my job starts, you know, I can push them off. They're asking 1st of January, maybe I can push them off to 1st of February. If I say 1st of May, that's really not okay. So what is the time you have flexibility about. So just think about all these before you go in for negotiation. Of course, there could be a question that comes up that you didn't think about. Often, right? Happens all the time. You just say, hadn't thought about that. Let me think about that and come back. Don't just give an answer. Let me think about that and come back to you. So buy yourself some time, and that's okay. Okay? So yeah, this zone, you have to figure that out. So what is their ZOPA? What is their agreement? And what is yours? So you want to look like a Venn diagram for an overlapping interest there for that to happen. You feel like that. You feel like you're walking into this really difficult situation in all this negotiation because you feel like you have so much to lose or so much to gain, right? So ask what is your best alternative to a negotiating agreement, even though you feel that way, and what's the zone of possible agreement, what I can accept and what I can't accept. So that's what we'll tell you. So then, okay, what's your style? How do you negotiate? And here you see, most of us fall in this, let's avoid this. Don't engage, just avoid, right? Who's saying, yeah, I'm looking forward to a negotiation? Nobody does, right? So there are others who will always accommodate. I need somebody to teach a third class. I need a TA to teach the third lab. They will never say no, they'll accommodate because they don't know how to say no. I need somebody to serve on a committee. They don't know how to say no, right? So it's fine for a while. After that, you feel like people are taking advantage of you. And you don't want to be there either. You don't want to be always satisfying other people's needs. For other people, it's all a competition. It's never a give and take. And you don't want to be there either, right? What you want to do is to be in that gray box, depending on where you think you are. Are you in this box? Are you there? You always say yes. Are you, everything is a competition and I lose if I don't get what I want? But really, we all want to be there. We want to be able to collaborate. We want good relations, get what we want, allow them, the other party, to get what they can out of the situation. And so those are the different styles. I know I have only 10 minutes, so I'm rushing here. Never go into this without understanding data. What is the situation? What's the regular teaching load? What's the regular salary range? Do they give moving expenses? Have they help with visas? So you need to do some work to get that data before you go into those situations, so you know what their constraints are, what they have done before. Yeah, they're your friends. Do your homework, right? And you have to tell yourself many times, it's nothing personal, it's all business. For many people, no is the starting point. No is normal. You should not expect anybody to say yes because you're asking. So no is normal and it's on the way to yes. How you get from a no to a yes is what it is. And so you have to move. It can't be a confrontation if you want to move from a no to a yes. It has to be a collaboration. You need to say, yeah, no, but if you do this, this is how it will help me. In exchange, I can do that. In exchange, next summer, I can teach a course for you. Whatever it is, or a lab for you, or I can stay an extra month and gather some data. Whatever it is, right? You have to come up with a way to collaborate. Yeah. And this happens all the time. People come, sit down, talk to me, have their complaints, something is not working, and then they get up and leave. They don't ask what they want to solve their problem. They somehow think by coming and telling me, I will now figure out how to solve that problem. I may not. I may say, you don't ask. So I just sat and listened to you complain for a while. And since you didn't ask, I have to do nothing. Because you didn't say, can I have a reduced teaching load? Can you tell me, give me an answer by the end of next week or whatever? So you need to know what is your ask.
And what is the best time to ask?
Yeah. So let's say it's a 1 hour meeting. So you go in, you chit chat. How was the day, the weather, whatever, kids, family, because we know each other for a long time, all that happens. Some people chit chat more than others. Then you put your problem. Then they're going to go all over because now they're understanding, okay, let me think about this, and different conversations, related, unrelated, everything comes out. Amy
That's
is
every time
laughing.
I meet with my advisor.
It's just normal. That's how these things go. So for me, 40 minutes into it, 2/3 into the meeting, you have to ask. Because then you're giving yourself 1/3, 20 minutes for them to respond to your ask and to negotiate a solution. Don't wait for 5 minutes before the meeting ends to ask. No, you need to keep an eye on the clock. Okay, blah, 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 all right, let's start. And they'll tell you, oh my God, even last year it was such a problem. That computer is just terrible. It doesn't work, you know, whatever. Yeah, you're gathering information, which is all fine. But really, 40 minutes you have to say, so in order to resolve my problem, this is what I need. And then you're giving them 20 minutes to respond and for you to negotiate. So 2/3, 1/3. 2/3 to frame the problem, to hear their perspective, 1/3 to figure out solutions and to have the ask. Yeah, makes sense? You're thinking. You want to ask earlier or later? No,
So
later.
give them 40 minutes if it is a 1 hour discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I do.
And put your points in at the last 20
Yeah.
minutes.
No. You're already framing.
Okay.
I have a heavy teaching load. I have a proposal due in December, and I really want to have a reduced teaching load. They'll say, yeah, but that course has to be taught. You taught that the last 2 years, so this is easy for you. It's very difficult for me to get somebody else. We don't have somebody with the same expertise. We really need you to teach. They're laying out their problem. So, and why they can do or can't do. So, about 40 minutes in, you have to say, yes, I understand your situation. Therefore, okay, can I teach in the summer? And I get the follow-up. Whatever your ask is, you have to put it down there. Or, yeah, I know you have money issues. I'm asking for 120,000. Yes. Oh my God, that's too high. We've never given anybody 120. Okay, let's talk about that. And that is to come to a solution takes 20 minutes.
Oh.
1/3 to see whether they can make what you, and they might say, no, there's no way we can do that. Okay, well, what's your range? We can go maybe, I can give you a range. I have to talk to my boss, which is also entirely possible, right? Because sometimes they don't have that. Okay, if that's the case, can you let me know in the next week or so? And then we can go from there. I'm still interested in your job. You need to let them know that this is not a deal breaker, unless it is a deal breaker. Yeah, I'm still interested. I'm just trying to see what works for you and for me. I've looked at Glassdoor, whatever. This is what I find is the range of salary they're offering. So I'm trying to come to an agreement that serves both our purposes. So all of that is like 1/3 of the time. But framing the discussion, understanding where they're coming from, framing your problem, that's the 40 minutes.
Okay.
While you're asking for this thing. And you don't have to ask. I'm looking for a reduced teaching load. I'm looking for a higher compensation salary. I'm looking for how I can use my vacation time. Don't do that. Just go to HR for that. So whatever it is, looking for my office space, whatever you're asking for. So just, yeah. But don't take 60 minutes to just complain without you asking what the solution is and expect them to come up with the solution. Yeah, they're not going to come up with the solution. So, good faculty. She's still a really good friend of mine in chemistry. That's why you didn't give, when I was chair, you didn't give me a good salary. And I've known her well for many years, and she's still a good friend. I said, okay, but you didn't fill out the annual progress report. So, I just find this so tedious. You know what I did for the year? I don't know what you did. I have 40 people who report to me. I don't know what all the 40 people did. I don't know what you're doing every day. So if you can't be bothered to take the time to fill out that form, I can't be bothered to give you a raise. Not making your case. So she was all upset. She walked out and I said, okay, well, it's done, right? She could have said, okay, I know I'm late. Can I fill out that form now? I think I deserve a raise, whatever she deserved, right? So she is a good friend. I don't want her to not get a raise for work she has done. So I did follow up and said, next year, could you please fill out that form so I can compensate you adequately? Because it's a long-term relationship. We don't want to not compensate them, but we need them to make the ask.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just be careful. I'm almost over, I think here. Oh yeah, be ready for theater. People will get angry. There's lots of drama. Oh, depending on the topic. So if you feel like you're losing your cool in some situation, that could be, my parents are, my mother is sick, I need to go, I want to go, I don't know how, and when I'll come, it might take me to see. No, you can't do that. Who's going to teach it? You're always doing this. Last year also your kid was sick, you were gone. But depending on the situation, there is drama. So let it all play out. And then come back to your point. You have all those other issues, we can talk some other time. Right now, can I go home for the next 3 weeks? Because I need to be home. But what about this project? What about that project? This is what you did last year. Some bosses are like that. We can talk about all of those. But right now, this is what I want to talk about. So let's realize what is drama, because you're making their life uncomfortable, right? They were fine, they didn't have a problem. Suddenly you brought this problem, they have to deal with it. So it's like, depending on what's going on with their lives, this is a problem they didn't want to deal with. So the people react in different ways. So let it play out. Sometimes don't even answer. Sometimes if you think if you're losing your cool, get out. Don't throw a tantrum. For women, don't cry. Get up. I have an appointment. I have to be somewhere like right now. Sorry, I'll make an appointment next week. Just get out of the situation. Have a horrible toothache, whatever. So just how to deal. You get to know people, so you know how to respond. Some people are not like that, but some people get on the table and yell and scream. So, okay, I'm sorry, I'm almost at the end. I have a few more, but doesn't matter. I think I gave you the more important parts of it. It's 5:30. I try not to keep it longer than that.
We can distribute this slideshow
Sure.
too, if you don't mind that.
Sure.
So, I'll send out a feedback.
I would like some feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, I told you we'll never have time to try out the negotiation, which I feel bad because that's usually the best part, but it's a short time.
Some worksheets here.
Yes.
So before you go into a negotiation, just frame out your
Think about
argument.
this. That's fine. Thank you for remembering to get that.
Yeah. We've got a whole set.
And please take some cookies home.
Yes, please.
Give it to all your roommates and whoever else.
Or if you got some.
For the last point which you covered, ask for it, for asking, there's a coming project. You're working in a lab, and there's a coming project after 3 or 4 weeks, and there's spring break starting from Friday. So should you ask before? No, I know it's a completely stupid question.
No, it's nothing stupid. When you have an issue, you have to resolve it. That's what we're.
Like, and if you want to, you're trying to get that project.
You should sooner the better.
So is it better to ask after or before that?
You can